Back to the Dean Obeidallah show. Right now, very happy to welcome to the show Ali Abbasi. He's an award-winning director and directing the brand new movie opening this Friday, The Apprentice. And it depicts Donald Trump's ascent in New York society in the 1970s and 80s. Sebastian Stan plays a young Donald Trump, and Jeremy Strong from Succession plays Roy Cohen. Ali, nice to see you. Thanks for coming on to talk about the film, my friend. And congratulations on a really well done film.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. So, first of all, what attracted you to this project, and how did you get looped into this?
Um, I went back to all the way back to 2018. I was here to promote my movie Border that just came out, which it was about two trolls who fall in love. So it's a bit of a different genre. And somehow someone thought that I would be a good fit to do a Donald Trump movie. So that was suggested to me, and I read it, and it was, sometimes the things are so outside of your scope that they become exciting. And I never thought about doing a biopic, not about a US president, and let alone Donald Trump. I mean, there are so many things that I haven't even thought about. But then I read the script that Gabe wrote, and Gabe Sherman,
Mhm.
who co-wrote the script with me, and I was struck by how humanist his approach was, and how there was a real sort of will to understand these people, understand their feelings and emotions as human beings. And I thought that was an interesting starting point, also for me as an outsider, because I think this for me one of the points of me doing this project is that I don't really have a horse in the game. I don't. I'm not Republican or Democrat or liberal or conservative or own a piece of land here.
Mhm.
So for me, this is sort of political theater shown on a grand scale, and a sort of almost like a Shakespearean story that I could explore.
It's of course, if Trump wins, you're banned from the country and Gabe's deported, even though Gabe was born here. But that's a lot. There's trade-offs for the art. You have to sacrifice for the art, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean, I have a
so
guest room for him in Copenhagen. He knows that.
that's a nice place. And Trump generally likes people from Copenhagen, from Norway. Those are the immigrants he likes generally.
Yeah, I mean,
He-
I'm sort of the wrong looking kind of guy from Denmark, I guess.
yeah, true. But if we don't tell him your background, maybe, oh no, Ollie will
You
give
might
it
hear in
away.
my accent. Who knows?
So yeah, my friend, Master Bronny, my buddy Maz, I think will be deported. Who's a comedian, very funny,
Yeah,
Ronnie
that
American.
plane would be very fun to be sitting on. There would be a lot of exciting, talented people who would leave this
That's
country.
true.
So,
I should look at the upside because then if Maz gets deported, I move up in the world of Middle Eastern American comedians. So this
I
is really
mean, there's
helpful for
always an
me.
upside. Yeah, there's
Right.
always an upside. I can see it. Like you've been studying Roy Cohen, apparently.
Well, I'm half Italian, half Arab. If Trump wins, I'm all Italian. That's how it works. And then Moss is gone. That's a lot of my peers are gone. That's how it works out. So,
Right.
what's interesting about the film? And I think if people hear like, oh, a Donald Trump film, they're going to think of the Trump of today, but it's not. I mean, Sebastian Stan and yourself as a director gave a human quality to Donald Trump, especially when he's younger, as very human. I mean, it was almost too likable. I'm like, I don't like this at all. I was unnerved by it because I don't like the
Hmm.
guy. Um, and Roy Cohen was the cutthroat guy. How important was it to show Donald Trump as a three-dimensional human being in the 1970s, 1980s when the movie's first taking place, as opposed to the Saturday Night Live caricature?
Dean, that was the mission statement, literally. That was what we set out to do, and I think we succeeded in that. And the testament to that is that everyone is nervous about. I think the biggest compliment we got is, I heard from a group of my Republican friends who watched it. They're like, "We're confused. Do you like this guy? You do you don't like this guy? Do you want to bash him? Do you want to promote him? What do you want to do?" And same thing happened with my Democratic friends, and they were like, "You're too soft on him, but yet he's sleazebag, but yet we like him, but yet he's the best." It's like so. And I think honestly, I've said this many times before. If we end up in this place where we're hated and disliked by both sides of political spectrum because we don't follow anyone's political agenda, I think we did something right, and that's what it did.
Look, it's a good film. I mean, that's what if people are coming into it expecting an agenda film, which you're gonna intentionally impact the election or something, they're going to be disappointed. But it does give us a lot of insight. First of all, Sebastian and Jeremy are great. What can you share with people about what did Donald Trump learn from Roy Cohen? Because it comes across so well in the film. But what is when you see the Donald Trump of today, what did he learn from the Roy Cohen of the time in your movie?
I think Roy was a very smooth political operative and a way like, and his, as it is in the movie, one of the things that he really firmly believed in was personal connections. It
Mhm.
was like, whatever the rules and the laws are, and this is a sort of like a little bit of this mob mentality, which is about friendship and loyalty. And when you have enough friends in high places and they're loyal to you and you're loyal to them, you're always able to bend the rules according to your will and wish. And I think he deeply understood that, and he was a master of doing that. He had a big favor book in the, so he was like almost, he was a fixer more than a lawyer, so to speak. And he was sort of cross favor his clients. He would do someone a favor, and that person would do a favor to a third person who was his client, and so forth. And I think that this way of sort of manipulating the system and rigging the system and using the system to your own benefit and navigating that, because I think he wasn't the only person who wanted to do that, but you have to
Mhm.
have the skills, you have to have the connections, and I think that's where the young Donald, I think he was a very good pupil there. Also, another big thing with Roy was he was a PR genius. He had a deep, very visceral understanding of media, how it worked, how you affect people. And it was one of the few people at his own time who were like, you shouldn't talk. I mean, if you look at like, news anchors of 60s and 70s, they talk very formal, they're very
Mhm.
stiff, and they want to come across as rational.
Right.
Roy's theory about media was very different. It was like, no, you're talking to a cab driver, you're talking to a whatever a guy on the street, and you need to excite him, you need to get him, you need to entertain him, you need to like energize him, you need to get him angry, you need to do that. It doesn't matter. Like the logic is not important, the truth is not important, the facts are not important. The important is that you have that compelling story, and that if you want a certain reality, if you don't have it, you build it, you manufacture, you
Right.
create whatever works for you.
And I'm talking about Ali Abbasi, the director of the new film, The Apprentice, which opens this Friday. How much can you share about Jeremy Strong's preparation as Roy Cohen? Did he study Roy Cohen in depthly? He seems like from his years on Succession and other stuff, a very deep dive type of actor who's going to really, he's not going to be glib. He brought it to life from the inside out. You could see in his work. Like how much preparation and studying Roy Cohen did he do?
Well, I mean, some of Jeremy's methods are secret even to me,
Okay,
he,
fair
he
enough.
just, some of the stuff he just says like, okay, I studied his speech. I'm like, okay, but how did you, you know, um, but I do know this about his way of working, which is I think look, Jeremy is a very intellectual person. He's very well read, and all that. But when it comes down to doing his, like, the handicrafts of intricacies of acting, I think he's also very, very much a good, like, handicrafts person who's, sort of approaches it very intuitively. And I think a lot of this is like he wants to sort of train his muscle memory in remembering the character and being able to sort of live and walk and breathe like that character. And part of that is obviously intellectual by reading about the character, reading interviews, seeing the interviews, seeing the footage,
Hmm.
biography, whatnot. Part of it is also sort of trying to capture different essences of him by, you know, body language, by, a certain posture, by a certain way of, like, sort of the muscle memory of your face and your mouth while talking like that person. And I think then he sort of puts all these pieces together, and it starts like being animated, and then that person is almost like a Frankenstein, and he needs to like sort of live freely and experience this world as a Roy Cohn character made by Jeremy, and sort of, you know so in that way sometimes, I would see that he would be using things from other scenes that we have done as a sort of shared memory with Donald.
Hmm.
And that I thought was very interesting, if that makes sense.
No, it does. Was he Roy Cohen on the set, or was he? I mean, I don't know if you can share what you're allowed to share. You were the director, you saw everything. It would be worse
I
if
mean,
Sebastian was Trump all the time, to be honest.
look, I've had this conversation with Jeremy. Like, I have to be honest with you. I don't believe in such a thing as method acting. I
Hmm.
don't believe, or let me put it this way. It's not that I don't believe in it, but there is a certain way with, the traditional method acting that implies if you're not a method actor, then you're not a real actor. Then you're faking it, and I just don't share that because I think that the sort of the performance, the way I love it, the way I appreciate it, is always sort of half aware, half unaware, and you have those aspects, sort of,
Hmm.
there's a part of it that comes from your spinal cord, and there's a part of it that is in your brain, and you never get rid of the either or. That being said, I think for me the most important thing is that I'm not standing in the way of my actors. I don't want to impose to
Hmm.
them what I think is right or wrong, because at the end of the day, my job is to help them get as good as possible. And whatever gets us there, I think that's the right method. What no, yeah, I mean, look, you can argue that any good actor is in character on set,
Hmm.
whether you're like, literally and minutely in character, or whether you're mentally in character. um but with Jeremy, sometimes in the beginning, I was like, he would complain a lot about like a lot of things, and, and I would go like, wait a second, is it Jeremy who's not happy with me, or is it Roy who's not happy with me? And I he's a lovely guy. He's a good friend, and he's a very sensitive guy.
Hmm.
But I can tell you, throughout the shoot, I was like, Jeremy, let's have whatever, dinner or a glass of wine or whatever and talk about this. And he was like, I would love to, but I can't right now. So we didn't get to hang out.
That's interesting how that. Well, look, I didn't know where that was going to go. It's interesting. A friend of I'm not suggesting everyone who's Iranian heritage who's an actor, but my friend Aryan, it was an actor on Succession
Right.
with him, and he enjoyed his time. I mean, they did a lot of improvisation, like a lot of
Yeah.
fun. So there was that whole other side to him, which is really comedic in a really remarkable way. So just a
Look,
testament to
he's
what a
he's
great
very,
actor he is.
yeah, he's for me the most important thing with Jeremy is he's committed and he's amazing.
Hmm.
And he's a good person. And I think when you have those three things, that it doesn't get better than that. And
Sure.
then sort of whichever way you spin, it's almost that's the fun of working with actors for me, because everyone has their own thing, has their own quirks, and has their own skills, and has their own way of doing things, and that's just like that make keeps it fresh for me.
That's great. And those are three great qualities. I have two of the three. So I'm missing one, but one day I'll get the third. I wanted to ask about the Donald's late brother, Fred the
Right.
third, was
Freddie,
depicted a
yeah,
lot.
Freddie Jr.
And I'm friends with Mary Trump. That's her father. And
Right.
it was interesting to see the fully dimension developed person there. Like this relationship was real, and it's not something most Americans know about. And Mary talked about it in her book. In fact, actually, in her first book, Mary actually painted Donald as a sympathetic figure. That the father was really the monster that made him more and more difficult. Why was it important to have that relationship between Fred and Donald in the movie? And it obviously there's an arc to it. In the beginning, they're
That's right.
they're much closer, and by the end, there he's like, "Well, you got to go stay someplace else. I don't want you here."
Look, Dean, this is just like any other relationship in the movie. Like, I think when you want to sort of access the human side and show that and depict that in its complexity and contradiction, all that, the best way of doing it is to show those close relationships. Relationship with his father, with Ivana, with Roy, obviously. And I think you know, from our research and my understanding, the whole relationship between these brothers, they had a close relationship. I think Freddie's sort of demise and death of alcoholism had like deep effect on Mr. Trump. And I think as much as you might dislike the guy, and his policies, he is a human being and he lost his brother, and that deeply affected him, and that pain is real, and it has to be real. And also, I think there is a sort of, in the movie, we use that as a turning point in, the what Sebastian is, in a really good way calling like his transformation as he turns into stone. And you see that, it's like one of the things I love with that scene is like you actually see how he transforms, how he sort of chooses to shut down and shut out his real emotions.
That really is one of those markers in the film. Last couple of things I'm chatting about Ali Abbasi, about the new film that he directed, The Apprentice, opening this Friday across the nation here. You said about the film festival, it was doing well, and that you didn't care if people praised it or bashed it, but that you were concerned about what felt like boycott or censorship in distribution. Then you got
Right.
distribution. Now,
Yeah.
what was going? I mean, did you hear people say, was it on the content? Well, we don't want to distribute this because it's critical of Trump, and we're afraid of it could affect us business wise later or politically later.
On the subject of boycott, Mike Huckabee suggested a boycott, which was, folks needs to go and see the Reagan movie and shut us down because this was not patriotic enough, and this was crap and all that. And he was also quick to say that he is a First Amendment guy, so everything should be accessible and honor. But we just, people should just not watch this. So, and I think this is a little bit of kind of the treatment we've been getting, honestly. We've been getting this treatment from our liberal friends, and some of them, the studio people, big distribution companies were like, we love the movie, it's so entertaining, you did the New York so great, now good luck with it. you know um, and and also on the other side, there's been some strange sort of, we got a cease and desist letter from Trump camp. We got some of these sort of backhand compliments like from Mr. Huckabee. And you go, if this movie is so crappy and harmless and whatever, so why do you care even if people watch it or not? But the common denominator with all this is like, we're not going to help you. um, so we're on our own, and as they say, like, we don't have that powerful person who's paying for us to criticize the powerful people. So
Look, the movie stands on its own. I mean, it's a very well done movie. It's not political. In fact, I think people who like films are going to like the film. People on the left, some of my fellow Democrats, might want it to be a little different. But if you see the reality, you see the arc, you let him go at the end at a place where he's like revved up to be. So
no, Dean,
sequel,
I think you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, and this is for me. I think I find the movie pretty entertaining myself. I love the
right?
soundtrack. There are some truly great moment of performances there. And I don't think you need to be a Trump expert, Trump hater, Trump lover. In fact, I would say if you love Trump, there's a movie for you. If you hate Trump, this is also a movie for you. And at the end of the day, I think, as you say, people should judge for themselves.
Yeah.
They should come in, they should watch it, and they should see what this all this fuss is about. And see if it was reasonable or not. And I think one thing that we've consistently seen is that, yeah, people come in, some people like it, some people might not, but everyone says we're surprised. Every
Hmm.
single person I've talked to, they say we're surprised by this, and I think that is worth something.
Well, maybe there's a sequel. We'll see how the election goes. You can
Yeah,
do.
let's see if there's a sequel to your elections, and then we can talk
We'll
about the
see
movie.
that, right? I mean, I'm really hoping the next one is like the prison years, Donald Trump, where we do it like he's in jail. He runs his cell block. That's me.
That would be without me. I don't do sequels.
Right. So no
Yeah,
sequel for you, but we'll see if Jeremy will get on board. Sebastian, we can age Sebastian, can put him in the
I
thing.
mean,
But well, the movie.
as a fully Italian person after, Trump wins, I think you're in good shape, to be
I look.
next
I
to
was
the.
half Italian. Look, I was half Arab, half Italian when he was here the first 4 years. We survived. It's just going to be harder this time because he has no limitations because of our Supreme Court. He can do whatever he wants. It's just unreal. So, well, Ali, it was very nice meeting you. And again, congratulations on the film, The Apprentice. It opens this Friday, October 11th. It's a really good film. I hope people will check it out. And I think people like films are going to enjoy it. People like, objectively speaking, very good film. I was really happy when I saw it.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
congratulations. And I wish you the
Thank
best with
you.
your films. And we'll talk hopefully your next film when it comes out.
Thank you, Dean. I mean, we want to make movies great again. So,
That's
I hope
right.
that happens.
Make it MAGA in a different way. And Mama. All right. Take
All
care.
right, you take
Take care.
care.